Hello and welcome to another Axess Systems webinar. This one is covering off the Citrix Future of Work tours that have been occurring over the last 3 or 4 months. So thank you everyone for joining in so far. I'm Ashley Barlow. I work as a pre-sales consultant at Axess Systems, and my specialties are very much the Citrix ecosystem, the Citrix portfolio, particularly with end user computing, digital transformation projects, and other areas as well. But today's going to be a focus on Citrix. So again, thank you everyone for joining in. I've looked through the control panel. I can see that hopefully audio is working as well as it can be. If anyone's got any problems hearing me or isn't getting any visuals or anything like that, please raise them in the question section of the control panel. Also, if you have any questions about any of the content that we're covering off, then please raise those throughout. I'll either pick them up as we go along, or I have got a slide at the end for Q&A, and we can pick them up there as well. So I'm going to dive straight in. Over the last 3 or 4 months, Citrix have been traveling Europe, giving partners and customers the chance to hear the key takeaways from the keynotes of Citrix Synergy, which was held back in the summer. So I was lucky enough to attend one of these events and wanted to share that message out even further, as it's information that really is worth sharing. It needs to get out to the wider customer base as well. I've deconstructed some of the information that was shared at the events, put an Axess Systems rubber stamp of approval over the top of it. I've added some of my own opinions, some of my colleagues' opinions, and I think we've kind of changed it from the vendor messaging to have the value-added reseller approach to sharing that information out. So as I said before, any questions, raise them in the control panel, and hopefully I'll grab a select few and go through them at the end. So in a typical sort of back to the future type approach, first we're going to have to go back in time a little. So in the past, IT was considerably easier to manage, to utilize. Applications were Windows-based, devices were primarily Windows-based, with some exceptions for things like mobile devices and bring your own devices. Applications and data resided in the company data centers. You could create a physical, well-defined perimeter that could be managed and secured internally. But we've moved from a PC-centric workplace now, and today the world is a much more complex place. Work is distributed, scattered across the globe. Workers are across the globe, partners, contractors located absolutely anywhere in the world. Applications and content and data all seem to be moving to the cloud, with the likes of products like Salesforce, Workaday, Concur, Dropbox, Box. None of it residing on premises anymore. Employees tend to be accessing them from multiple endpoints. So, no longer just those Windows devices, it's desktops, it's laptops, tablets, smartphones, wearables, Internet of Things devices that are connected to the internet. And IT workloads are moving beyond company-run data centers to regional branches and a whole multitude of public and private clouds like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. And that complexity is only going to increase and accelerate in ways that, arguably we don't even know about yet. So in the context of the Citrix vision, I think it's fair to say that they recognize that work is no longer a place anymore. The world has moved beyond the PC. It's moved outside of the data center, and moving beyond the cloud, into that SaaS application world as well. Ultimately, what I took away from this sort of section of the future of work keynote is that in the future, the only thing that will matter from Citrix point of view, the only device that will matter is you, the user. Work will occur absolutely anywhere and everywhere that the user is located, whether they're on a laptop on the corporate network or a smartphone on the road, or maybe gaining insights through a wearable, or connected at a conference, or a hospital room, a meeting room, wherever it is, whether they're at a customer site or on a site the other side of town, or the other side of the world. Work happens absolutely wherever the user is. So to improve that employee engagement and productivity, the user needs a digital workspace that is context aware, that's reliable and intelligent enough to offer up the right access, the right insight, and the right performance to get the job done. So whilst that sounds complex, and when I first heard it, I was thinking it's easier said than done, and that's because complexity is really hard to tame, but it is also where Citrix can really help. Really helping organizations deal with the complexity and put it all together in a way that creates this new software defined perimeter and also enables the easy access for people wherever they are around the world, whatever device they can come in on, and to give them contextual access to the apps and the data, the information and the resources that they need. Whether it's cloud technology coming from one of many clouds, or whether it's a traditional on-premises technology, a mobile technology, the users just need to access it all in a simple contextual way. And that's precisely what Citrix are delivering. So for the end user, the people at work, the people on the ground, the most important thing is the unified experience, enabling them to access their workspaces. It needs to be familiar and fluid. And from the moment that the end users come into that workspace, be it logging in or whatever it may be, the moment that they come into that workspace, they need to feel like they have access to everything that they need to do to be productive, to deliver their workload, to do their job. On the other side, IT departments need to manage all of those devices and control the policies and access. And you need to manage all of the apps, and you might need to modernize them. I think Citrix appreciate that app modernization is one of the biggest hurdles that organizations currently face, and IT departments still need to have that full visibility, and that's really the way to turn your company into an intelligent organization. And what Citrix have created, from a big picture point of view, is what they call the secure digital perimeter. So Citrix discussed this sort of framework and their vision for digital workspaces back in 2018, and last year Citrix unveiled their analytics service, which uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to defend against things like external and insider security threats. Endpoints are very much a potent source of threat insights. Citrix's unified endpoint management, which consolidates the management of devices, the operating systems, applications and content, a variety of different platforms, is powered by the endpoint management service with Citrix. And this secure digital perimeter is effectively the Citrix ecosystem in itself. So creating that unified experience, still maintaining employee satisfaction, still giving IT ultimate control, and giving that single platform for users to work from. And that's what they're defining as the secure digital perimeter. So that is the big picture, and that sounds great. It's easy to talk about. It's easy to understand where where Citrix is heading, and what their messaging is for the near future, the not too distant future. It's all very big picturesque. So what I wanted to do is not only just take away from that, but try and dive a little bit deeper into it as to what it means from traditional messaging point of view. And Citrix's infamous messaging is very much centered around security, experience, and choice. And moving forward, I think the experience is where the development is right now, thinking about that human side of users rather than the scientific measures of experience, like we used to, like performance, application load times, login times, display quality and the likes. It's quite often throughout the session, quite often throughout the keynote and the sessions at the Future of Work tour that Citrix are doing, there was statements like this on screen: employee experience is the new paradigm for driving competitive advantage. And quite often it was complemented with facts and figures around how with better user experience we'll get more productivity, better customer satisfaction, higher profitability, more revenue growth. These are all, it was a very powerful statement to make, but for me, I really wanted to understand the whys and the hows of how this comes to fruition. So tried to deconstruct it a little bit, and I think we kind of got to the point where the message is security, experience, and choice, right? So what does that mean? Well, let's not forget that Citrix has 3 core portfolios, and we can kind of see the correlation between the messaging and the Citrix portfolio itself, where security can refer to the Citrix Analytics side of the business, the experience refers to the workspace side of the business, and choice can, you know, in this instance, I'm going to say it refers to the networking side of it. It kind of falls into all pillars really, but let's dig into each one of these and make it relevant, and like I say, try and deconstruct that messaging at the start. So first off, you know, the old disclaimer, some of the stuff that is included in this presentation, just want to remind everyone that, you know, most of the content reflects currently shipping code, but we do make some references to upcoming releases which are not yet set in stone. So as these solutions and offerings approach general availability, the strategy and plans are subject to change, and you should never sort of like make your decisions based on you know, the forward-looking statements at the end of the day. So that's the that keeps our legal team happy, to say the least. So diving into it then, so user experience, that's what we're talking about, is the messaging. Experience is the messaging. Really, that product and that portfolio underneath it is Citrix Workspace. Okay, so the Citrix Workspace, it's the one-stop shop of everything you need to be productive in one place. I'm not talking about the Citrix Workspace app, formerly known as Receiver. I'm talking about the Citrix Workspace, so the products that you know, things like Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops, Citrix Content Collaboration, the endpoint management. This is what I'm referring to when we're talking Workspace. And when we're talking Workspace, we're not just talking about your on-premises apps or data now, and that's because Citrix are now taking a leaf out of the consumer experience approach, where there's a very large sort of elephant in the room with instant availability, instant on, everything being available on one device. Now, I think when you start, you know, on screen, you've got things like Facebook, Airbnb, you've got some multimedia and entertainment stuff on there. You know, we say this is all available from one device and whatnot. Maybe if we switch that word device out for a workspace, maybe that messaging starts to fit a little bit better with the Citrix Workspace. And what Citrix is trying to, you know, what they're trying to do is create the intelligent workspace. They branded it the intelligent experience, and it's all of your data, your applications, your SaaS applications, micro applications, on-premises applications, your desktops, your cloud workloads. That's all available in a single from a single pane of glass. So, you know, they're distilling applications into personalized units of work. So all of the apps that our users need to be productive, all in one place, all in one workspace, all with one single authentication. You know, the list goes on. So what you can see on screen is, you know, the front page to the Citrix Workspace, and that's not just giving users access to launch an application or a desktop. It's giving users notifications to some of their SaaS applications, be it Office 365, Workday, Salesforce, applications that you might have to step outside of a traditional Citrix workload for, to open up a web browser, to open up an application, to get into that SaaS application. It's bringing it all into one intelligent experience, which is the Citrix Workspace. So Citrix have obviously invested a lot of time in shoehorning, you know, your micro apps data into the intelligent workspace, and from what I've seen so far, it really works and it's useful, but it you know, only to the point where you're a consumer of these applications, right? So I've said it to a number of customers already that enabling users is key. Asking them to log into multiple platforms to do their job isn't really enabling our users. The intelligent workspace, compacting all of my apps and data into one workspace, that's enabling my users, and I can totally see the benefit that that Citrix bring with it. So, you know, out of the box, you know, your big hitters out there, your Microsoft Dynamics, SAP Concur, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Zendesk, Salesforce, Office 365, you know, everything that's on screen, they're out of the box micro apps that can just slot straight into that intelligent experience. And for those apps that don't work out of the box, you know, they've catered for that as well. They've gone and created a nifty little tool that lets you integrate whatever you want from an application point of view into that workspace experience with a micro app builder. So, you know, it's a drag and drop configuration for the non-devs out there. You can customize existing templates for common tasks. It's really easy to design rules and workflows, so you don't need to flood your intelligent workspace feed. This isn't general availability yet. We've kind of got a little bit of access to it and some slide decks relating to the tech, though, you know, we've got to get you to sign your life away in the form of NDAs before I can really go into much more detail about it, but it is pretty cool. So on that bombshell, move on to the next bit then. So I think I mentioned these in the Synergy Roundup webinar that we did a few months ago. And, you know, these features are now real features. And the screen capture prevention and keystroke scrambling, they're excellent additions for protecting your users. They kind of do what they say on the tin. I'm hoping to set up a demo of these as soon as possible as well, so we can show you a little bit more one-to-one, or, you know, put something on the YouTube channel that covers off exactly what they do. But, you know, the anti-keystroke logging, or keystroke scrambling, as I keep struggling to say, is very much anyone typing in a secure browser delivered through the Citrix workspace. If there's any sort of man-in-the-middle attack trying to read the content from your keyboard or whatever it may be, then that input is scrambled and it's jargon to the person that's trying to maliciously get that content. Screen capture prevention, you might have seen it already with things like mobile device management. If I open up a work application delivered through, you know, Citrix endpoint, unified endpoint management, and try to take a screen grab, it just grays out. It goes into my photo library, but it's just a grey screen grab. And you can do that across the board now with virtual apps and desktops as well, which is pretty cool. So that kind of covers off the Citrix workspace and the experience side of it. We move on to choice. So choice is the is sort of the messaging, and networking is the portfolio that falls under it. So Citrix networking, you know, I think when people think of Citrix, the word any comes to mind, and that's because IT should have choice over their infrastructure and cloud providers, but they should also have choices in management and monitoring tools that align to their administrative needs. So I was talking to a colleague recently about how far Citrix networking has really come. You know, when I first started out in this end user computing world, I remember, you know, Citrix's idea of networking was having a gateway appliance called Secure Gateway installed on a Windows operating system presented out to the World Wide Web. You know, thankfully it's come a long way since then, and the networking portfolio covers off application delivery controllers, secure web gateway, software-defined WANs, intelligent traffic management, application firewalls, gateway services. You know, there's a bunch more I'm sure I'm missing off, but you get the message. It's really being developed, and you know, to the point where it is really delivering world-class experience as well. So one thing that I think we don't talk about enough is the WAN. So, you know, a typical setup is on screen. You've got your main data center, your private cloud. You might have some public cloud infrastructure, some SaaS applications like 365. You've got a bunch of branch offices all connected through a WAN. So Citrix want to make that better. So what they do is, you know, let's improve the WAN. Let's stick some Citrix SD-WANs everywhere. So it's unfair to call SD-WAN an emerging technology. It's been such a significant part of the Citrix ecosystem for the last few years, but its messaging is getting stronger and stronger. So, you know, what we're doing on screen is, you know, multiple links that are providing connectivity to your branch offices, to your main data centers and things like that. We're aggregating them with SD-WAN, utilizing that SD-WAN as a gateway, and you know, repeating packets across various different lines, and making sure that there's never any outages to my data center, to my applications, to my data from my branch offices, from my head office and things like that. That's just one of many features. You know, it's got caching features, connectivity aggregation. Both of those are second to none. And for those traditional architectures, like the one on screen, SD-WAN can seriously improve your performance for end users accessing multiple services from multiple locations. Particularly when it comes to Office 365 or Microsoft 365. So, you know, one of my favorite facts about M365 or A365. I'm just going to call it M365, I think. So one of my favorite facts about M365 is that Microsoft recommends being inside 30 milliseconds for the best performance. So no further than 30 milliseconds away when you're talking to office.com, microsoft.com, those URLs where those data centers where your content is actually hosted. Microsoft recommends you being inside 30 milliseconds for best performance. So to put that into context, that's about the same as the blink of an eye. So if you're not that close to M365, which a lot of people aren't, seriously, a lot of people aren't, then make use of SD-WAN to reduce the latency using multiple points of presence that it's got access to, using the front doors and the edge sides. It will improve your Office 365, Microsoft 365 experience. And we've seen that firsthand. It really is, it really is worth investigating. So if you've got SaaS applications, you're probably already aware of the woes of what it means to access them with degraded or poor internet connectivity. And SD-WAN is bridging that gap and providing your always-on connectivity from branch offices, high-performance cloud networks, quality of service for your high-priority apps and voice apps, things like that. I mentioned points of presence before. There's 10 POPs that the SD-WAN's got access to, which is growing. There's 7 located throughout the United States. There's 3 located throughout through Europe, and that's what's bringing you ever closer to being inside that 30 milliseconds. And from an SD-WAN point of view, you even get some automated provisioning with Citrix Orchestrator, which is pretty cool. So another diagram on screen. In this one, kind of tried to map out how many Citrix networking services that we're utilizing. So we've got public cloud, SaaS applications, hosted clouds. They've got ADCs in front of them, gateway services in front of them. We've got SD-WANs at branch offices. Well, there's something missing then. What we want to do is manage these devices, and that's where the Citrix ADM platform, Application Delivery Management Platform, really comes into it. That sits on top of all these services to give us insights, intelligent insights into what is actually happening on these devices when they're deployed. It's driven by machine learning. We can create role-based custom dashboards for them, intuitive service graphs. I'm not going to say it all word for word on screen, but you can kind of see the flow that it goes through. So it's a nice, easy to follow workflow from that point of view. It is really, really quite cool what SD-WAN can deliver to your already existing Citrix sites. Excuse me. So the Citrix Analytics, the messaging was security. The portfolio side of it, the product is Citrix Analytics. It's a key tenant for all products at Citrix, including your virtual apps and desktops. And Citrix believes that security is simply not a black and white solution of access denied and access granted, but it's something that needs to adjust based on the breadth of user access with information regarding their device, their network, the tasks they're performing, the locations of these users. So it does go quite in depth. So firstly, what it analyzes. It's a single view and proactive resolution for all of your security, performance, and productivity needs. Analytics is collecting data about all of my users, their devices, the content and resources, their networks, and more. It's then using that telemetry to clearly show me as an administrator what is happening, and more importantly, why it is happening in simple terms. So Citrix actually used a really cool analogy, which I am entirely shallow enough to just outright steal and not even credit the guy that came up with it. So I'm gonna try and go for it. Hopefully it works out quite nicely. So, question really for the audience, hypothetical question, not expecting you to answer it, but how confident are you guys at playing poker? Well, I know what my answer is. I went to Vegas for my honeymoon 3 years ago now, and I am really, 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 really bad and not very confident at playing poker. Well, how about now? Now I can see what the other players have on the table. Brilliant. Well, that seems like an unfair advantage to have. So now I'm a lot more confident about playing, right? I can see what other people have got. Got a couple of percentages there in terms of likelihoods. I quite like that. How about now? So not only can I see the players' cards now, but I also have percentages and predictable outcomes. Now I'm 100% ready to sit at that table. And this is what analytics is giving you in your Citrix environment. It's something that Citrix announced in 2018, and the service itself has gotten more mature over the last sort of 18 months, 24 months. And it's really giving administrators answers before the users are asking the questions. So, you know, that poker analogy is trying to explain you already have the answers before, you already know the outcomes, you already have the answers before the users are alerting you of any problems. It gives you that look into the future to prevent problems, secure areas of your network, of your infrastructure, of your Citrix ecosystem, your Citrix platform, before they become a problem. So, you know, all right, this one's, you know, this, all right, so Citrix can offer the world's first solution with quantified user experience scores. So, you know, not to pull it apart, but I don't know if you guys on the webinar can remember the scoring index that came in with Windows 7 a few years ago. I'm not entirely convinced that this is really a world's first, but putting that to one side, I really like the idea of user experience scoring systems. So, you know, 90% of administrators that I know, they aren't going to sleep well at night knowing that their systems simply aren't the best out there. So when this was first announced at Synergy, I think our feedback, Citrix, was that this should be public facing. You should be able to go to a portal and see that company A has the best login times, but company B has the best application launch times, and company C has something else to do with that user experience that is being scored, and you can start to sort of almost compete publicly against, right, whose services, whose IT systems, IT services are really the best. And, you know, I think that competitive nature not only helps IT solve problems, but it keeps them sharp and always wanting more as well. Which, you know, I think that's really cool. Really enjoyed that part. You know, whilst natively Citrix Analytics is great, it is even greater when it's paired with the likes of Microsoft Security Graph, Splunk, Ping Identity. You can really enhance and enrich it, which is really cool. So a little bit of a curveball slide that I've kind of thrown in at the last minute. Sat in on a how to secure your SaaS applications presentation with one of the senior sales engineers at Citrix, Adam Cooperman, really intelligent, enthusiastic person, and you know, great to know him, great to work with him, and great to hear his views on some of this stuff. He actually did a really good presentation on hacking his way through various different public-facing websites. So he did a little bit from an Okta point of view, a little bit on LinkedIn, just trying to spoof and capture people's credentials, and then utilizing some offensive security tools, you know, reissuing cookies back into the browser to spoof the authentication and actually get into the system. It was really cool presentation, and the outcome, the big reveal at the end of that, was very much he tried to do it against the Citrix workspace, the front end Citrix workspace, and none of the tools, none of the offensive security tools that he was utilizing could actually break through it. And it really did sort of evidence that Citrix is raising the bar through defense ultimately. So hopefully all of that made sense. You know, there was some really great takeaways from the event itself, and hopefully I've done them some service today. Unfortunately, the webinar has got to end somewhere. So I think the closing message from me is that the way to summarize the future of work from Citrix is a little bit like this. It's what these platforms did for our personal lives, what Apple was doing for the music industry, what Amazon is doing for online shopping industry, what Netflix is doing for streaming entertainment, Facebook and Twitter and the likes for social interaction. What these platforms do for our personal lives, Citrix will do for our work lives as well. And now that's really cheesy, but they have Citrix have mastered and dominated the end user compute and security and networking arenas, so they're allowed to be a little bit cheesy. I think that's fair. So hopefully that was useful. Hopefully some of that stuff resonates with you guys. So let's have some questions and I'll see how I can get on about answering them. So look, I'm even begging and pleading in the slide deck. Please don't leave me hanging. No, we've had okay. Some of them we might not be able to do publicly on the webinar, so we'll pick them out and go back to the individuals raising them anyhow. One of the questions though is related to Citrix's release strategy from a current release and long-term service release point of view. So thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. The next long-term service release due to be announced, in theory, should come out next month or January 2020. The latest version of virtual apps and desktops is 1909. Q4 of this year was the planned announce date for the next LTSR release. So hopefully 1912 will be, 1912 or 2001 will be the next LTSR. Without a doubt, that's been announced. And I think, when, given the questions come in about that, I think in terms of key features since the last LTSR, that was a conversation I was having with a construction company recently, and I really appreciate the conversation and took a lot away from it. So I'll try and remember some off the top of my head. There's things like since 7.15, the last LTSR, new tech is things like real-time user experience optimizations with adaptive transport, HDX session watermarking, the native Outlook search redirection, although arguably you'd probably want to look towards FS Logics for that rather than natively doing it within Citrix, in my opinion, in our field experience. And we've got some battery status visibility for anyone utilizing it from a laptop device or a tablet device. We've got the Workspace app and whole Workspace experience. That's new from 7.15. Support for Server 2019. PVS asynchronous IO. That's pretty neat. Again, getting more out of your VDAs. Current release versions, they're released every quarter, and those releases are patched and fixed for 6 months. 6 months after the general availability date, and then they're marked end of life 18 months after their general availability date. So going back to the question that I was having with the conversation I was having with the construction firm, the question was, what route should you go down, LTSR or CR? And my preference is the CR path, the current release. That's where the development is made, and that path is more closely aligned with Citrix Cloud, which is becoming harder to ignore. So there's more features and therefore more value when justifying costs. And after an LTSR release ages by a couple of years, it really does start to show when it's compared to the latest current release. So now it's always a fun topic to talk about. And if anyone else wants to sort of carry on that conversation, by all means, drop us a message. But I think on that, we'll call it a day. I've stolen enough of your guys' time. Really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything else that you guys want to know, feel free to reach out to us. You'll get a copy of the slide deck in PDF format over the next few days, I'm sure. And thank you very much for attending.